June 14th, 1942, 0300 hours. Churchill's War Rooms, London. Underground bunker air thick with cigar smoke. The dim glow of a single desk lamp cuts through the shadows, illuminating a wild-eyed man in rumpled tweed Geoffrey Pyke, leaning over blueprints that defy sanity. His voice cracks with urgency as he jabs a finger at the sketch. A colossal ship, 2,000 feet long, hull not of steel but shimmering ice. Prime Minister, German U-boats are slaughtering our convoys in the mid-Atlantic. No land-based planes reach them. No steel carriers survive the wolves. But this Habakkuk, UK. Pykrete, ice and wood pulp, bulletproof, unsinkable. It drifts like an iceberg, launches 300. Churchill stubs out his cigar, eyes narrowing under bushy brows. Pyke's feverish pitch echoes off concrete walls. Lord Mountbatten nods from the corner, the combined operations chief already hooked. Outside, the blitz scars still smolder, but down here, desperation births madness. Pyke slams a Pykrete sample on the table, a fist-sized block tougher than concrete. He pulls a pistol, fires point blank. The bullet ricochets with a sharp ping, leaving just a shallow dent. You can almost hear the room's collective gasp. The material doesn't shatter, doesn't melt fast. But water? Pulp from newsprint mills? Freeze it in refrigeration coils snaking through the hull. Power it with surplus motors from factories idled by bomb craters. This beast won't sink to torpedoes. They'll glance off like pebbles. Repair it with a hose and a freezer. The clock ticks toward dawn. Churchill strokes his chin, the weight of sunken merchantmen, millions of tons, thousands of souls, pressing like the Thames fog above. Is this lunacy? The desperate spark and races back to the Atlantic slaughterhouse. January 1942. U-boat Wolfpack's prowl, U-boat Alley, sinking 150,000 tons in weeks without reply. Convoys scatter like sheep. Essex-class carriers too distant, too vulnerable. Pyke, the eccentric inventor behind earlier flops, like the Midge folding boat, sees the gap 600 miles where planes can't patrol. His solution? Mobile bergs, self-propelled ice fortresses hugging convoy routes, impervious to Donitz' subs. Mountbatten buys in hard, pitching it to Churchill at humid night. By morning, Project Habakkuk, Green's lights top secret, code-named after the biblical prophet who toppled walls. Scientists swarm. J.D. Bernal, crystallographer turned wartime wizard, refines Pykrete 86% ice, 14% wood pulp stronger than unreinforced concrete, melting 10 times slower than plain ice. Tests at Smithfield Market. Bullets thud harmlessly. Even Tommy gun bursts barely scar it. Pyke grins maniacally as chunks survive flamethrowers spread through Whitehall corridors. Engineers balk how to refrigerate a 2-million-ton behemoth. Proposals balloon. Version 1, wooden hull. Version 2, 1,200 meters by 180, Pykrete skin over steel skeleton, engines churning at 6 knots. Final design, 600 meters long, 90 meters wide, flight deck for 150 planes, Spitfires, Mustangs, dwarfing any carrier afloat. Hangars below, warmed by exhaust heat. Walls 40 feet thick at the waterline. Cost? £700,000 weekly, once rolling. Resources diverted from tanks, ships. Churchill growls. Admirals mutter about propulsion 6 massive electric motors. Pulp-insulated cables snaking miles. Bending stresses on such a mass? Iceberg core for stability, towed from Arctic build sites? Pyke dismisses them, eyes alight. Yet as blueprints finalize, one question lingers like frostbite. Can man truly forge a floating glacier into a weapon? And what horrors await if it fails? Snow whips across Patricia Lake, Jasper National Park, Canada. March 1943. Midnight -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Under blackout tarps, Royal Canadian Engineers huddle around generators humming like angry hornets, pumping refrigerant through pipes coiled into a 60 by 30-foot Pykrete slab. Lead engineer John Coulter wipes frost from his beard, watching the mixture freeze solid ice from the lake, pulp from Alberta newsprint mills, slush molded layer by layer. No steel forms, no welds. Just water, wood fibers, and cold sharper than a bayonet. You can hear the crackle as crystal hands raw despite mittens. Prototype Habakkuk scaled down at 1,000 tons takes shape, flat-topped, all 7 feet thick, refrigeration grid pulsing like veins. Tests begin at dawn. 303 bullets from Ren guns punch in a foot, then halt cold. Sten bursts scar the surface, but the core laughs it off. No cracks, no shards. A Webley revolver fired point-blank embeds its slug harmlessly. Pyke telegraphed updates from London. Crow's victory. Tougher than concrete. Bulletproof bark. But the real trial late. Waves lap at the hull in Jasper's icy bay. Engineers rock it violently, simulating Atlantic swells. Pykrete bends but doesn't buckle, absorbing torque like a lover's whisper. Propulsion trials. Electric motors whir. Propellers churn 6 knots, steady as a convoy plotter. Inside, mock hangar space for walrus spotters. Crew quarters warmed to 40 degrees by engine heat rooted through pipes. Mountbatten visits incognito, stamps his boot on the deck. It thuds like oak. By God, it lives! Yet melt tests chill the mood. Unrefrigerated edges soften in summer sun, dripping slowly but surely. Power demands soar full-scale needs megawatts, equal to a small city. Back in London, Bernal pores over data by candlelight, blackout sirens wailing overhead. Stress models predict the behemoth's hull, flexing 10 feet amidships in storm trough Pykrete holds. But joints? Scaling up means Arctic shipyards, Greenland fjords or Baffin Island, where ice is free and U-boats dare not tread. Churchill demands prototypes multiply, but whispers grow. Prototypes $50,000 cost balloons, steel saved, negligible against the behemoth's appetite. Admirals circle like wolves HMS illustrious real carriers, prove their mettle at sea. Is Habakkuk a miracle, or a frozen folly draining the war chest? As Patricia Lake's Berk bobs under northern lights, one crack appears not structural, but in resolve. How far will desperation push before it shatters? June 1943. Admiralty boardroom, Whitehall. Summer sun filters through blast-proof glass, but the air chills as blueprints unroll across the oak table, Habakkuk's full glory in stark black lines. Admiral Sir Andrew Cunningham, First Sea Lord, leans forward, cigar clenched like a torpedo tube. Pyke's Berkship, 2,000 feet of frozen folly. Our illustrious launches Avengers from real steel Habakkuk plods at 6 knots, a sitting duck for Rue 88s. Mountbatten counters hotly, slamming Pykrete samples. It repairs with a hose, Andrew. Torpedoes glance off 40-foot walls. U-boats can't touch it. But numbers bite. Refrigeration for the Colossus demands 30,000 horsepower. Cables thick as wrists snaking miles, power equal to Birmingham's factories. Steel? Still needed for innards, engines, guns. Debate rages through humid afternoons, tea cooling untouched. Engineers from William Denny and Brothers Shipyard crunch figures. Hull flexes like a whale in force 10 gales, Pykrete absorbing waves that snap steel spines. Armament sketches Dazzle 16 twin 4.5-inch turrets. 120 Oerlikons blistering the sky, radars peering through blizzard squalls. Flight ops, catapults hurling 150 aircraft, hurricanes, swordfish, even mosquitoes into the mid-Atlantic void, closing the deadly gap where donuts as wolves feast. Pyke bursts in mid-meeting, wild-haired, brandishing Jasper photos. She floats, she fights, yet costs Spiral £1 million monthly, Manpower for 10 destroyers diverted. Churchill, briefed via secure line from checkers, growls, "Proceed with caution." Across the Atlantic, Jasper's prototype endures. Summer thaw tests. Edges weep at 70 degrees Fahrenheit, but core stays solid. Pykrete's pulp lattice defies entropy. Canadian crews drill mock-ops. PBY Catalina's landing on the slab deck, skis gouging harmless furrows. Radio chatter crackles. Habakkuk to base-holding trim in 8-foot rollers. Ernal refines formulas in a Cambridge basement, blackout curtains, Tronad cotton lint. Asphalt binders. Strength triples, melt rate halves. Visions sharpen. Flotilla of bear carriers shadowing convoys from Halifax to Liverpool. Unsinkable shields birthing air wings that shred U-boat snorkels. But Luftwaffe shadows loom. FW-200 Condors range far. Can ice mount enough FAA? Whispers turn to roars in Parliament corridors. MP leaks to the press halted by D-notice. But skepticism festers. U-boat sinkings plummet anyway. Hedgehog mortar, improve ASDIC, escort carriers like Bogue, proving steel's edge. By autumn, as leaves gold Patricia Lake, orders trickle, halt expansion. Prototype dismantled quietly, blocks bulldozed into the water ghost of what might have been. Pyke fumes in exile. Mountbatten pivots to plaster sailor decoys. Churchill pens a memo. Interesting, but not vital. Was Habakkuk killed by reality, or robbed of its moment? As Allied torches flare brighter, one final test beckons. Could it have turned the tide? October 1943. Patricia Lake's shores. Jasper. Mist rises off the water like battlefield smoke as bulldozers growl, shoving Pykrete chunks, once the beating heart of Habakkuk, into the depths. Canadian sappers in greatcoats watch silently, breath fogging in the crisp air as the prototype's remnants sink with dull splashes. No fanfare, no salvos. Just the scrape of steel on ice and the faint hum of dying generators. Pyke, pacing a London bedsit, crumples a telegram. Project shelved. His dream of floating fortress, the star of the Reich, drowns in secrecy, leaving only ripples and whispers among the pines. You can almost feel the chill of what might have been, a ghost ship vanishing into the freeze. Across the ocean, Churchill pores over maps in the cabinet war rooms, fingers tracing convoy routes now safer. U-boat aces like Otto Kretschmer rot in Canadian POW camps. Donitz's packs fracture under hunter-killer groups Avengers from USS Bogue, Liberators from Iceland. Steel carriers like HMS Ark Royal's successors prowl unchallenged, their decks alive with Hellcats clawing skyward. Ernal shelves his Pykrete notes beside radar prototypes. Turning to D-Day Mulberry, harbors instead floating concrete that works. Mountbatten, ever the showman, deploys Pykrete in smaller tricks. Dummy oil tanks, baffling Luftwaffe photo recon. Berk-shaped decoys, luring Stukas to empty seas. But the Colossus? Dead, buried under not vital memos. Yet fragments endure. In shipyard dry docks, Denny engineers tinker with Pykrete caulking for hull repairs, bulletproof patches shrugging off splinters. Admiralty files lock away blueprints. 2,000-foot Leviathans with 40-foot walls, hangars humming under electric suns, catapults flinging 150 planes into blizzards where steel would rust and sink. Post-war, Cold War dreamers dust them off Ice Island T3, a natural bark turned radar picket. Project Hula's frozen Aleutian bases. Pyke dies in 48, broken, but his madness inspires. Supertankers of Pykrete? Arctic oil rigs? The material's secret lingers in labs, tougher than ferrisment, cheaper than titanium. Skeptics crow vindication power hogs, slow as molasses, vulnerable to bombs cracking the skin. But what if? Imagine Habakkuk off Normandy, launching typhoons through June gales, shrugging off V-1 buzz bombs while steel sisters list and burn. Or shadowing Murmansk runs, Pykrete hulls mending mid-storm with seawater sprays. Reality chose Essexes and audacious classes, victors in steel. Yet in quiet moments, admirals like Cunningham admit a pang. Habakkuk's audacity mirrored Britain's spine-desperate, defiant, unkillable. As war's fires fade to embers, one question haunts like frost on glass. In our darkest hour, did we discard a weapon too wild, ... or wisely thaw the dream before it froze the war effort? May 8, 1945. V-Day dawns over London. Crowds roaring in Trafalgar Square as Churchill-esque bulldog growl echoes from radios. Victory in Europe, but deep in declassified files, Habakkuk stirs one last whisper, a blueprint yellowing like old ice, stamped cancelled. Pyke, frail in his Hampstead flat, clips headlines of U-boat graves, 785 sunk. Donitz defeated not by bergs, but by codebreakers at Bletchley, centimetric radar, and steel hulls that learned to hunt. His Pykrete block sits on the mantel, bullet scar gleaming a relic of the war's wildest gamble. Did desperation thaw too soon, or did sanity prevail? The answer drifts like fog over Patricia Lake. Post-war labs crackle with echoes. U.S. Navy tests Pykrete at Point Barrow, Alaska floats shrugging off. 50 cal barrages, patching radar buoys in Arctic gales. Cold War shadows revive it. Dew-line pickets, ice stations drifting toward Soviet subs like silent sentinels. Bernal, knighted for his wizardry, pitches Pykrete domes for desert radars, self-cooling, bomb-proof. Shipwrights experiment, hull liners for Liberty ships, caulking that laughs at coral reefs. Even Superman comics nod 1940s issue sketch, iceberg carriers battling Nazis. Pyke's fever dream immortalized in four-color ink. But scale eludes. Number 2,000-foot Titan ever chills to life. Today, Jasper's shores guard the secret. Divers plumb Patricia Lake's depths Pykrete ghosts intact after 80 years. Pulp fibers locking crystals against thaw. Tourists snap selfies by plaques. World's first Pykrete ship. 1943. Climate scientists eye it anew. Melting glaciers demand unbreakable floats for probes. Arctic rigs beg for hulls that flex with pack ice. Habakkuk specs haunt war games. Simulations pit bark fleets against tirpitz. Outcomes razor thin. Churchill's grandson pens memoirs, admitting, grandfather regretted nothing except perhaps not building two. From U-boat alley to D-Day beaches, the war turned without it. Yet in every supertanker sketch, every polar outpost, Pyke's madness melts through. What if Habakkuk had launched? Convoys unbreakable. Atlantic sealed by 150 plane swarms from unsinkable decks perhaps, starving Berlin months early, shortening the slaughter. Or folly incarnate, power blackouts mid-storm, Luftwaffe bombs spider-webbing the skin till it calves like a true berk. Reality forged victory in proven steel. But Habakkuk endures as Britain's sole eccentric, unyielding, born of blackout nights when ice seemed salvation. A frozen what-if, whispering through gales. In war's forge, even dreams of Pykrete can temper empires. The colossus sleeps ... but never fully melts.